What's that? All right, so I'm going to call the Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 meeting on the Commission of the City Plan to order. And we've got a quorum. Should we seat Jason as an alternate? I mean, as a regular member?
Yeah, because you have no one else online, do you?
No. Not that
Okay,
anymore, no.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see Jason as a regular also, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 5.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And we have the first order of business approval minutes from September 17th. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any changes, corrections, additions?
I'd make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Okay, motion by Jim Cordo to accept the minutes, second by Ella. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
So those minutes are accepted. Communications, intermunicipal referrals.
So we got a couple of these. So some of them, the dates are coming up or they've already passed. So, but between meetings, these things come in. So this first one was from the town of Franklin. They were having a public hearing on an application on October 15th. And it was a renewal and extension of the permit for Seymour Adelman's property on Route 32 for his industrial use. He wants to continue with his gravel excavation. So if you have any comments about that, the public hearing was the 15th. I do not know if that's still open. If you had comments, we could submit them. So, the next one is from the town of Montville. And again, this was the end of September. Their public hearing was October 22nd, today, at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. And theirs is a zoning regulation. So I think they wanted, looks like they want a text amendment, building facades in their R20 zone, which it says the must require that they have their facade towards the street, because it says the parcel we're proposing to develop does not lend to facing the facade towards the street due to a cross slope and the deep narrow shape of the lot, which is very interesting because you usually don't do amend zoning regulations with specific language like that. So that would be more of a variance. So this is a weird, that would be kind of my question on that one, but since it's today. And then the last one would be the town of Montville. Let me see if this is the one, same one. Hold on. Oh, this is the language now. Buildings shall be so grouped that each facade shall face full dimension upon a street unless the parcel or parcels involved in the development are collectively located. And they're changing their request for the language because they're proposing, like I said, the face of the building doesn't make sense to be towards the street. So there must be language. It doesn't show what the language is going to be, but the reason is stated why they're doing it. And just let's see if there's any other thing. Oh, and the last one is from Preston. This came from town planner Kathy Lucico over there. She's zoning regulation amendment to add the definition for short-term rental, an amendment to section 5.1 of the zoning regulations to add short-term rentals in residential districts, and delete other section 1619 and replace with amendment about short-term rentals. So this language about short-term rentals. And then Preston had one more. All these just came in. Again, public hearing tonight on this one in Preston. And that is for correcting the title for farm wineries to include cider mills and other farm fruit activities. So they want to just amend the title and include some language statutorily. It does allow now to have cider mills inclusive in that. So they just are modifying their regs to include that. And we will be doing the same when we do our zoning regulations, make it clear that farm wineries include cideries. Okay. Any comments from anybody? Okay. So
And what was the date on the first one for Franklin, the public hearing?
The 15th, I think.
October. Okay, thank you. Franklin, let me get back to Franklin. I'm sorry. It's Preston.
If it was October, I had the 15th.
The one underneath, I'm sure. The last one. October 15th was when it was. Yep. Okay.
All right, under new business, we have public hearings and potential action on the following special permit applications. First one is SP 24-05-105 Stonington Road. This is a continuation of a public hearing from previous meeting. The public hearing is still open. So at this point, I would ask if there's anybody from the applicant. We don't need to add anything else at this time.
No, not right now. Let's have the
So if the applicant has something they want to put before the commission from the continued hearing, they can do so now.
Hi, my name is Jack McCartney, and I'm with CLA Engineers, and I'm representing Nautilus Botanical. And tonight here with me, I have Connie DeBover, who is the VP of Nautilus, and with her in this meeting too is Luis Vega, who is the CEO and social equity applicant at Nautilus. Yeah, so I believe Connie has some stuff that she wants to go over that have to do with some of the points that were made in the memorandum sent over to us. That kind of had to do with some of the odor and fertigation concerns that the town of Preston had. So I'll let Connie take the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Jack, and thank you, Luis, for being here as well. Luis can certainly answer some of the questions on odor and fertigation. But hopefully, you as the board did see the letter that we submitted, as well as the 7 emails and letters that we submitted from various towns around Connecticut in terms of odor. And then finally, we did submit a site plan that showed the planting of, I'll call them the odoriferous plants that should offset the odor. So I'm happy to go over any of those documents. I could share my screen, or at this point, happy to take any questions. So please direct me how we should proceed.
Okay, you want to share your screen and go through the comments you had so we can take a look at them at this point?
Sure. So let me see, hopefully this. Tell me if you can see the screen okay.
Yeah, it's up now.
Okay. So this is a letter, roughly 3 weeks ago that we sent over to the board. I believe, well, I sent it over to Deanna, so I will assume that she did distribute it to the board, but it was basically to address the questions that I believe both you and the town of Preston had regarding odor and fertigation. In terms of odor, I will just say that, we have not had any evidence in the states that we operate where there's been an issue with odor, especially in outdoor. And we did, I think, discuss this at the last meeting, but, we wanted to be proactive. And so we, revised our site plans to show the planting of, I'll call them odoriferous plants, right? Like lavender and rosemary. So happy to share that site plan so you can see. But I think, more importantly, and hopefully more telling, right? So there's some things we can do once the plants get into our facility, which is when you're drying and curing them and getting them ready for processing. So there's, carbon filters and things we can do on the HVAC system to really mitigate any odors. But I think what's more telling is, what I outlined down here is, we have letters from outdoor hemp, outdoor cannabis cultivation, indoor cannabis cultivation. I reached out to various towns and spoke to either the Department of Health or the town zoning department. It varies depending on which towns would be responsible for addressing any complaints. But I think it's pretty telling that, we had two fairly large outdoor hemp farming operations in Shelton and Monroe. Louise can speak to that because he was overseeing both of those operations, but no issues with, odor. That was from the owners of the farms, also the health and zoning departments of each of those towns. Same thing in Morris, which is again also a very large facility. These are both much larger than what we plan, but point is, the zoning enforcement officer also noted no odor complaints. And then 3 out of the 4 existing, cultivation and manufacturing facilities in the state did indicate no odor issues. I did not receive anything from the 4th, so I don't want you to take it as we received an odor complaint and we just didn't let you know. They just didn't respond to our inquiry. But I will stop there in terms of odor. Happy to take any questions, and then I will go through fertigation.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Bover?
I do. I noticed, I looked online for odor control and odors emanating from a cannabis building, a cannabis farm. And it seems to be, there seems to be a lot of negativity about that. So I'm just wondering, the places that you mentioned in, what was it, Shelton and Monroe?
Mhm.
2 towns you checked on with the odor. I mean, how many homes were nearby that those farms? You happen to know?
Could you address that? Because I don't remember there. I remember in Shelton, because I've been there, there was a farm store where customers went. It was a fairly popular farm store, and then there were residences, I would say, within 1 or 200 yards. Is that your recollection, Luis? I don't remember in Monroe, to be honest.
Hello. Yeah, there's residential buildings that outlined every one of the farms and fields. And right in Monroe, we were in a very, very, very active farm that did Christmas trees, pumpkins, strawberries. They did literally full ag tourism, and many people didn't even notice that there was a full hemp field going on.
If it helps you at all, I do have the emails and everything is up on the site for you guys to look at, but if you didn't, have an opportunity, I can just quickly go through what each of those towns said, if that helps you.
Well, I'm just curious
We could get the address too,
what
so
they,
that you can, pull it up on Google Maps to see their residential.
well,
you know.
I wouldn't imagine any real complaints if there was nobody living nearby.
But there were, literally, as you drive up to the Shelton farm, it's all lined with residences, and then you get to the farm, right? Like no more than 100 feet is the parking lot, right? There's a residence right on the border of the Shelton farm, and then you have the farm stand, and then the fields right behind it. So there were residences abutting the farm.
It says in Watertown, right on the email, there is one residential property nearby, but it's basically in a business park, and the one that mentioned residential properties, just so you know. One comment.
But happy to provide the addresses in, I guess, Shelton, Monroe, and Morris, so you can, or, happy to pull it up on a Google Maps too. So you can see what residences are surrounding those farms.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Were you gonna read something into the record?
I just wanted to go over my memo really quickly. I don't know if you all had hopefully a chance to read that. The first is really the timeline for the application. My memo was October 18th, and saying that we do need to close this public hearing tonight. You do not have to make a decision tonight, but you do need to close it. There is about 64 exhibits. They all have been available online for everyone to read. So at some point, I'll ask you to agree to waive them, me reading all them into the record, but there's a list with 63, excuse me, items on that. And everything that we've gone through, all the other meetings, emails and everything tonight, including the emails that Connie submitted. So I wanted you to review those online so that we would not have to read anything tonight. The first cut of the property that was shown on the plan had the division of the map was approved by zoning and filed in July. I have not received any more comments from MPU, August Health District, or any other city staff. Their comments had been addressed previously. So then I had noted that the applicant had, if it was informed that additional information needed to be submitted at this public hearing about the methods for controlling odor, the fertigation plan, and types of organic nutrients, pesticides, and herbicides that'll be used on the property. And then she provided some additional information. And I wanted to make sure that, you know that our zoning regulations do have standards for performance standards that need to be met regarding waste. And so make sure that you feel comfortable with that, but the applicant is here to address any questions you have on that. I wanted Jack, if he didn't mind, to refresh you that it's not a waiver, but in our we allow for a reduction in a buffer. The commission may reduce the requirements of park landscape buffer where topography, permanent natural features on public lands or buildings design accomplishes the purpose of separation and screening from industrial districts from residential districts, and in no case shall the landscape buffer be reduced to less than 20 feet. So before we get done, I think he should show you, you don't need to do any kind of waiver, but you just, that the commission can reduce that to 20 feet, which is what they have asked. The last iteration of the plan, there was still a dumpster and recycling enclosure missing from sheet 4, which is the first phase of the project. And I would require, I'd want you to make sure that that item was addressed, number 6 in the memo. And then standards, usually I have standards in our memos to you, which talk about the conditions of approval, including should you make at some point that they have a bond required of $54,690 for erosion and sediment control in the form of a check or letter of credit. And then, obviously the dumpster and things like that I talked about. And this is standard, pretty much the standard conditions. And if you were to approve this, you would want to say that it conformed to the sections that I noted at the end of my memo, which are sections 2.5, 2.4, 5, and 7.7 of the zoning regulations. But if Jack, if you didn't mind showing where that landscape buffer reduction was.
Yeah, we actually were not,
Did you end up not needing that?
yeah, at the last meeting, I thought we,
Okay,
um,
it was a carryover from my previous memo, so I
yeah,
did.
if you see, we pulled the whole building and the parking lot back and we were able to get that 50-foot buffer,
Okay.
Route 2.
Thank you. And then sheet 4, did you address that dumpster and enclosure on that, on the site plan for the phase 1?
Yeah, we got the dumpster enclosure on here. I uploaded the plans to the portal, I think 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry I missed that. So those items from this memo have been addressed. So that's it.
What about Mr. Bo? We're going to talk about the fertigation issue.
Yep, I will share my screen again so I can go through a letter.
I'm just curious if Preston is represented here tonight.
I am here. I'm gonna speak. You're not gonna let me speak.
And I'm just wondering, because you moved up to the fertigation plan, okay. Have all the issues in the Preston letter, have they all been addressed already?
Preston had responded to the last iteration of their memo and had comments, and then Connie, this is what she's trying to do now, is address them. So this is where she's at. So the commission has the authority to determine whether those have been addressed or not based on what she provides.
That'd be memo 4.
My memo that I spoke about this in my memo 4, which talks about number 4, was that to provide additional information in response to what you were hearing.
Well,
So
I
this
think it
is-
needs to be clear for the commission that those concerns that Jerry has brought up are concerns of the town of Preston. They're not requirements of our zoning regulation.
Well, only that you meet standards, that you have certain standards, but
Correct.
you have to determine what, if the applicant has met those standards or not by what they're
But
providing.
what I'm
So,
saying is, just because somebody raises an issue doesn't mean it's something that is not in compliance with our zoning.
and that's for
No
you to-
offense, Jerry.
And that's for you to determine. That's for you to determine of what, you have the authority to take evidence from either side and determine what you feel is most comfortable. Okay?
So if you could address the fertigation issue, please.
Yes. So in terms of fertigation, I did attach links. It's a product line called Athena. I think it's fairly familiar with a lot of growers, not just in cannabis. But if you click on the link, there's a lot of safety sheets and labels. They're all, I would say, well, minerals or elements. So they're all fairly well-known and non-harmful, right? And I spoke to the sales representatives from Athena just to understand what was contained in these safety sheets and labels. And basically was told that this is what is used for other agricultural crops in Connecticut and the US. And they had some studies that showed that there was no harm or degradation in the runoff water and any pollution related to the groundwater or municipal water. And I attached that test from one of their customers just to attest to that. So that's the fertigation plan. And then for pesticides, I think that was also a question. We're using something called Xeritol. It's a pesticide that's been approved by the US EPA. It's also approved by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I did put a link to that so you could read, what the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has said specifically to hemp and cannabis growers. So, we have a fertigation, or I call it nutrients, right? Which we have determined, is really fairly natural based. I won't call them organic, but really natural, not showing any impact in terms of the runoff water on groundwater supply. And then the pesticide, as I mentioned, is approved both at the US and the state levels.
And then just to second that, so I've also been taking the classes through the Connecticut Department of Agriculture and the Yukon Extension for all of the safe farming practices. So with that will come the education from Yukon and the Department of Agriculture from the state.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions of the applicant at this point?
Oh, yeah, at some point, not for the applicant, but for you, if you would just waive the reading of the exhibits, if the commission's comfortable with the waiving. That's it.
Yeah, I just want to get
Yeah.
to questions first and ask if the applicant has any other information they want to present at this time.
I think between this letter, hopefully we've addressed the questions that you had regarding odor and fertigation and pesticides. I believe from my understanding of your zoning regulations, from what Deanna sent, yeah, I think there's a requirement that odor is, I can't remember the exact words, that it's not, I think, obnoxious or something like that. And I'm hoping that given the testimony, if you want to call it that, from various towns, who have operated hemp and cannabis operations, in Connecticut, that hopefully that does give you some comfort. And then also just, the measures that we are proactively taking to address odor. Honestly, I've been to the hemp farm when Louise was farming it. You don't smell anything until you're literally standing right in the plants. So I would be pretty surprised if there were any complaints, but happy to, again, address any questions you might have. And I will leave it at that. I don't know if Jack has anything else.
No, I think that as far as the site plan goes, we've pretty much addressed everything. I think the only real thing was we had to add that dumpster enclosure for the phase 1 site plan. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Does anybody else want to speak? Did you have a question?
I do. Because we stopped at fertigation, we're going down a little further. The solvents that are to be used for the processing, and then wastewater. It is, and I know it might be addressed. I just haven't seen it yet. In some states, it's not permitted to discharge wastewater from growing or processing facilities into a septic system. And the reason for that is it might contaminate wells. Now, given that there's quite a few houses within, I don't know, 800 feet, maybe there's a few houses, 900 feet, 1,000 feet. I'm not sure if that's been addressed as far as contaminating the wells. Would you know anything about that as far as contaminating wells? Some of the discharges of wastewater, ma'am?
Would it be different, the groundwater or municipal water versus well water?
I'm just trying to go down this list that was supplied by our neighbor, the people in Preston, and how it's going to impact them, possibly. So I'm just going down the list and I'm reading about some of the wastewater. We just talked about the fertigation. And then the next one is blasting on the site. I'm assuming you satisfied the city of Norwich with maybe the blasting, but I'm just wondering if what you might be doing differently or what you might be doing regarding the blasting of the ledge.
For the ledge, we're going to be doing a pre-blast survey before any blasting's done, and that's all going to be submitted to the fire marshal, and they're going to go over it, and if they require anything additional than what we provided on the plan, then we'll be sure to do that.
All right. Well, I'd like to hear what the selectman from Preston might have to say, but that's the way I feel. I would like to keep Preston happy as well as make this thing happen. But that's where I'm at. I'm a little stymied by this letter from Preston, and I think they have a lot of issues here that I have not seen addressed yet.
I have just one clarifying question. So for this property, is it going to be a septic system or is it going to be municipal sewer?
It's going to be on septic.
I guess to answer the question or try to address the question on well water, I guess it's hard for me to understand without knowing where people's wells are, right? Like any runoff water, at least from what I could see, would be, I mean, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, you're more the civil engineer than I am, but it'd be towards the Stonington Road area. So there's only one house to the, I guess, left of us, right? That depending if, I don't know if they have a well, but I don't see how else the groundwater or runoff water would affect wells.
For the most part, all of the runoff from the site is going to be here. Can I share my screen again?
Yeah, I think there's a water basin for that, isn't there?
Yeah, all of the runoff from the developed portion of the site is all going to be flowing into a water quality basin, which is going to treat any contaminants that are in any of the stormwater runoff. So anything they're using to treat the plants or anything is all getting washed into that basin, and it's all going to settle out before it leaves the site. So it really can't contaminate anything.
Can you put up the plan and show it, please?
I'm trying to, oh, there we go. Yeah, so basically everything you see my screen.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
everything from the developed site is all gonna run down into these catch basins or just directly flow into this basin where it's all gonna kind of settle out and get filtered out by different types of plants we have in there. And it's all gonna be filtered basically before it leaves the site. I think I have But yeah, I mean, that's what these basins are designed for. They're designed to make the runoff from the site cleaner than it was when it was cleaner than it was before.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything else from the applicant? Okay, so now, is there anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the application? Okay, anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application?
I'll speak in opposition to the application. My name is Jerry Gavarik. I'm also a selectman in the town of Preston, a lifelong dairy farmer, and own property, one property away from this proposed marijuana grow facility. I took it upon myself to contact the town of Morris first select person. His name is Thomas Waite. He was also a former family farmer like myself. And he told me that for 3 to 4 weeks, when the plants are blooming, it's like 20 skunks are squished on the highway in front of your house. That's what it smells like. And I have to believe the guy. This is what he told me. Why would he lie to me? He said an adjoining property owner next to that site is afraid she wants to sell a house and she's afraid she can't sell a house because the odor is so bad for about a month out of the year. It's not, I know it's not gonna be odor all the time, but for these people to get up there and say there's gonna be no odor. When I asked them about the aromatic plants to offset the smell, he laughed. That's what his response was. The first selectman of Morris laughed. All right, that's that part of it. This parcel of land may support 2 or 3 homes, and that would be its best use, not a 9,600 square foot building where they got to blast sledge to smithereens to get it up. As I said before at a previous meeting, this land, I have land like this on my farm, this soil type. A billy goat can make a living off it. That's how bad it is. And then when we went on the sidewalk, we all went on the sidewalk, and I had a comment that everybody should wear boots and stick them inside their pants because the only thing that live on the site are deer and deer ticks. But Claire can attest, when we were up there, we found a deer jawbone, so even a deer can't live there. So the next point I have is their pesticide pan. They list that chemical that they use, and they also list integrated pest management, which I know as a farmer, it's bogus. That's all. Bogus. All right. And the location of this outdoor growing area, which is right on the Preston line. So the smell is not gonna run uphill and go over to Gardner Avenue in Norwich. It's gonna run down along the Norwich Wesley Road, which there is couple of residences, and a beauty shop that's right there on the end of the Norwich, in Preston, Norwich border. Those are the people who are gonna smell it. Nobody else. All right, now, I realize that city of Norwich is so hungry for tax revenue, they approve everything. That's just my personal opinion, okay? But if you do approve this thing, these are the conditions that I would like to see on it. First of all, do a well yield on the properties, because they're doing extensive blasting. Do a well yield and monitoring and, before they blast. And my farm, this is no lie, I lost my water once when the Citgo gas station, which was 3,100 feet away from me, I lost my water for my cows. I had to drill a new well. This was in 2004. I don't want to go through the process again because this guy's blasting. And I'll tell you, the FBI did a training exercise in the junkyard across the street that's 3,700 feet from my house. And they dug a hole in the ground about 3 or 4 feet, blasted, and my whole house shook. And I was 3,700 feet away. And see this little sweatshirt here? It says FBI. You know where I got that from? I got that from the Preston fire chief because he was so upset that he didn't notify me they were going to blast. And my heifers get scared when they blast. They've run through before. They didn't notify me. They weren't going to notify me. So I would love to be notified if they're going to blast. And I also would love to know, even though I'm 5,100 feet from that well, the rock is so hard through that region that I know that it could affect my well yield, and I don't feel like dropping another 10 grand on a well. Fair is fair. My other conditions are, since hemp plants are used as a mitigating factor for PFAS, in other words, the New Haven Experiment Station is doing a study now. They're growing hemp because it absorbs PFAS, and marijuana is a member of the hemp family for sure. I'm saying that the city of Norwich should test the stuff for PFAS before it's allowed in the market. And then the last thing they were talking about the runoff. So I know the site. I mean, I've lived in town my whole life. I'm 72 years old, gonna be 73. The water runs down that hill, runs into catch basins, runs down into Preston. And there's a little stream down in the bottom, up just from the Citgo station. And that little stream happens to run through my whole farm. So I don't need extra. So I'm careful with my land. So you should make the applicant connect to the Norwich sewer system, not have a private thing. That soil type has got to be the worst type of soil to put a septic system in, any large scale septic system in. The depth of bedrock varies from 6 inches to 20 feet. But it's not ideal septic system land. Certainly not for an operation like this that's coming off. So, and then the last question I got, so somebody in Preston has an odor complaint if this thing gets built. How is it going to be addressed? I don't see, I mean, I looked in your zoning regulations, I don't see a whole heck of a lot. So that's my spiel. I think I've covered quite a few of their points very well.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none. Time to close the public hearing.
Yes, but before you do that, make a motion just to waive the reading of all those exhibits and the exhibit list.
Yeah.
Dan has
I'm just
the
gonna
list.
show it on the screen.
Um,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yeah,
Is it possible to respond to that or not necessary?
That's up to the chairman.
Yeah, if you have a response to the comments, you can go ahead and make one now.
No, thank you. I really appreciate that. A few things, you know, Jerry pointed out the odor, from Morris. I want to point out one very clear fact, right? That's 50,000 plants. We have 1,500. So I think that needs to be taken into account, right? The scale difference, which is a pretty significant difference. And, you know, we did submit something from the zoning officer of Morris, who would be in charge of taking complaints from residents or citizens if there were odor issues. And as noted in his email, there haven't been any complaints. So hopefully I hope that the board takes that into account in terms of odor. Then in terms of the septic system, we would have liked to tie into the municipal sewer as well. But when we talked to the Uncas Health Department, just given where the sewer lines were, which I believe is, Jack, I think it's on Bartlett Street or something like that. I might be getting the street wrong, but it was too far away for us to tie into municipal sewer. So that's why we had to design a septic system.
And we were able to find a pretty sizable area that had suitable soil for a septic system. Obviously, it was approved by Uncas Health District. And yeah, we found a very good area where we were able to fit a primary and a secondary system in. So.
And I think the only other point I'd like to address is the testing. So I'm not quite sure about PFAS. I know what they are. I'm not quite sure I see the connection, but I did want to make the point that, and hopefully Jerry and the board knows, in the state of Connecticut, and really any state where cannabis is legal, you are required to test your products prior to any distribution for sale to consumers, right? It goes through some pretty rigorous testing for mold and various pesticides, metals. And I can send the exact criteria that they use for the testing labs in Connecticut, but it does go through a pretty rigorous testing process. So I think that should be noted and taken into account. Luis or Jack, I don't know if you had any comments or answers to some of Jerry's questions.
Yeah, maybe one last thing. He was saying something about how he doesn't want extra runoff coming into that stream. But actually, there's going to be less runoff leaving the site because of the retention that the water quality basin provides. There's going to be less runoff coming off the site post-development than it has right now. So that's pretty much it, I think, though.
Thank you, Jack. All right, so this is Luis again, and I appreciate everybody going in, and I know cannabis is one of those touchy subjects, and you know, I appreciate everybody taking their time, and I respect the gentleman with his concerns. One of the amazing things in agriculture, being an agriculturalist here in the state for the last couple of years, and working on an active farm, not just for hemp, but for pumpkins, for dairy, for meat cows, for pork, and kind of the entire gambit of the Connecticut food system. Connecticut agriculture has really done a great job about making sure that Connecticut is a right to farm state, which kind of goes in with some of those byproducts, and we're really trying to mitigate the smells and those type of things. And as we've explained a couple times, cannabis puts off terpenes, which are prevalent in many different plants like lemongrass, lemon, citrus, pine, and those other sources. And it's been a big thing to the big thank you to the dairy farmers. The byproducts of cows is methane, and the smell of dairy farms permeates the air pretty heavily. From working on one, from driving past them, I understand the idea of smell, and we've put in a lot of work and effort to show that it's not really a huge thing. And I would personally, everybody's a little bit different. I take the smell of fresh flowers over cow manure, which our great state has tons of manure farms for its off product of horses and cows, pigs, and everything else. I would say let's put that also in our minds that this is a active flower farm, not another dairy or meat farm putting off the off products, or even a storage area for manure, you know. So that's all there. I appreciate everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else at this time? All right, so can we have a motion to waive the reading of the exhibit list?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the exhibit reading list.
Second,
I'll second.
motion by Jason, second by Ella to waive the reading of the exhibit list. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's done, Deanna. Can we close the public hearing now?
You can, just if you were to make a motion, whoever makes the motion, please consider putting in the conditions that I stated in here in my memo. The only item to be not needing to be addressed now would be, it's a second bubble down, it says item 6 of the planning memo be addressed. But you could leave that in there because it's already been addressed on the plan, but you know, you could leave it in there. So I want to make sure that it gets on the final set. So I guess this number 7 to 7, and we make sure that if someone.
Well, that's on a motion. I just want to close the public.
Yeah, but
hearing.
I'm just saying, I'm letting you know before you close the pub. So if you make that motion, please state that on the record, those conditions, and also the reasons on the record, please, for support of an application. If you want to do that. But that's the last thing I have to say.
All right, so we have a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
And I'll second.
motion by Jason, second by Ella to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Okay. So the public hearing is closed. Does the commission want to make a motion in connection with the application itself at this
I'd like to make a motion to approve it, as long as all stipulations are met in the memo that Ian mentioned, in order to diversify and expand the tax base.
So it's also that bottom line.
Yes, just the reasons the proposal conforms to ZR section 2.4, chapter 5, and ZR section 7.7 of the zoning regulations.
And the motion being made by Jason, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ella for the motion to approve with the conditions as stated and for the reasons as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If that was a unanimous approval.
Was it unanimous? Did everyone vote in favor?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion to approve has been approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry, for your input. Thank the members of the applicant for your input, and we'll move on the agenda to the next item, which is special permit 24-08, 642 and 650 New London Turnpike. It's a request for a special permit for a proposed cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility. Phase 1 of the site work to include driveway reconfiguration, parking lot, a 55,080 square foot structure, installation of utilities, stormwater management systems and associated grading. Phase two to consist of approximately 42,120 square foot of additional greenhouse space. Property of Louis and Julie Malerba, application of Turnkey Real Estate LLC, Assessor's Map 123, Block 1, Lots 38 and 39, Zone GC. So can we have a motion to open the public hearing on this matter?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ella to open the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, second by Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing is opened. The applicant here to make a presentation.
We are.
Okay. Thank you. If you want to proceed and introduce yourselves, and you can go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jerry Farrell Jr. I'm appearing on behalf of Quinnipiac Valley Growth Partners and its real estate arm, Turnkey, the applicant. Turnkey is under contract with Lou Malerba to purchase this site, and Quinnipiac Valley would be the tenant of Turnkey and operate a cannabis cultivation facility on this site. As the president of Quinnipiac Valley, I come to you with a reasonably extensive background in the legal production of cannabis. I served as Commissioner of Consumer Protection, which is the licensing agency for cannabis businesses, at the time that medical cannabis was first discussed at the state level. Subsequently, I became a principal in CT Pharma, one of the 4 original medical cannabis producers in Connecticut. I subsequently competed in the process for a Section 149 cannabis cultivation license, which we were awarded under the banner of Quinnipiac and would be moving forward as part of this application. Today, Quinnipiac includes the team I have assembled, including Michael Pierpont, who you will hear from, who has degrees in botanical science and a background as a commercial cannabis cultivator, as well as David and Jane Smith, who have built and run many businesses, including Safetiva, which is a licensed cannabis testing facility in Massachusetts. While I understand that any approval is indeed site-specific, I did want to acquaint you with the team and the utter seriousness with which we approach building and running this facility. And Kyle will pick up the rest of the initial presentation here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Kyle Hobbert from CLA Engineers. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Turnkey Real Estate. If I could share my screen, I can show some exhibits to you guys.
Sure thing. Go ahead.
Can you guys see that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, it's up on the screen now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. As I said, I'm Kyle Hobbert from CLA, here tonight on behalf of Turnkey Real Estate LLC, the applicant for this project. Here tonight for proposed advanced manufacturing and cultivation of cannabis products. The project will be located at 642 and 650 New London Turnpike, which are these properties right here. To orient you guys, New London Turnpike is running down the left side of the sheet here. The properties are 4.9 and 4.92 acres respectively. Currently used primarily for Malerba's driving range. That would be the bulk of the property here, would be the Malerba's driving range. You also might be familiar with the Millie's ice cream shop that would be located in this building right here. There's also a rental residence located right here on this property as well. Surrounding the two parcels, to the north, we have Malerba's farm. You can see the farm fields and greenhouses. To the east is a property of the state of Connecticut. It's August-on-the-Thames complex. To the west, there's a portion of the Norwich Golf Course as well as the Norwich Ice Rink. And finally, to the south are other properties of the Malerba family. These parcels are zoned to general commercial GC. The advanced manufacturing is allowed in the zone by special permit, which we're here for tonight. We have provided a detailed narrative outlining the project and how it meets the special permit criteria that was submitted with the application. The project itself does meet the bulk requirements of the GC zone. And as a side note, if this project is approved, these lots will be combined into a single lot prior to development. As noted in the application, the cultivation and manufacturing facility will be developed in two phases. You'll see to the north is the phase 1 development. The phase 1 will include a head house building, excuse me, which is located right in this area here. I can show you on our site plan. This would be the head house building. That includes the manufacturing area, lab space, office space, locker rooms, secure storage, and loading. And then phase 1 behind that would be 3 greenhouses, all 12,960 square feet each. Also, as part of phase 1, this existing residence is an existing non-conforming use. That residential use will be abandoned, and the building will be converted to office and meeting space and potentially some storage space as well. The ice cream shop and the office for the driving range, those uses that will be discontinued, but we have planned for restaurant and office space to be used in that building for our parking counts, but the actual operators at this time will be discontinued. I can show you a rendering of the building elevations that you would see for phase 1. You can see the front end would be a metal building. This would be the main loading access to the property or to the building, as well as man doors for entering and exiting the building. Again, this is the facade of the building facing towards the London Turnpike. And then the row of greenhouses further behind the head house. This would be the head house here in the distance. Phase 2 of the project would be very, very similar to phase 1. The head house would be an identical building located to the south of the phase 1 development. The only difference being the phase 2, there would only be 2 greenhouses stacked behind the head house. In total, all the buildings, including a reuse of the existing buildings, were at about 99,180 square feet of building. I would like to note the growing operations, all of the growing operations will be done indoors within these greenhouses for both phase 1 and phase 2. And after I go through kind of the site plan, step through the site plan and all that, I'll pass to Michael Pierpont and David Weber from Quinnipiac Valley and Turnkey Realty, and they'll go over some of the operations and how their operations work within their buildings. I could go through access to the site. This would be the main access here to the west off of New London Turnpike. We have relocated the driveway entrance slightly south from where it exists currently for the driving range and for the ice cream shop for 2 reasons. This will allow a direct access directly straight through the site for the facility. Also shifting the entrance south will improve the sight lines when exiting the driveway. If you're familiar with that area, looking south, there's a relatively short sight line now. But moving this driveway a little bit further south expands that sight line so that we can meet the guidelines. Parking for the facility, in front of the restaurant space here, there's an existing gravel parking lot, that will be paved, for a new parking lot, essentially on the same footprint as exists today. For the converted office meeting space, we've allowed a few parking spaces for that area, for that facility. The parking for phase one, again, is located to the west of the head house building, located right in this area here. And then the phase two parking would be located similarly to the west of the head house building in this area here. Phase one requires 58 parking spaces. There are 66 provided on the site for phase one. At the full build out with phase two completed, there will be 87 parking spaces required and 93 are provided as part of the development. These parking lots in the front here along the London Turnpike have existing lighting over them. That will remain unchanged. We're not proposing any change to that lighting for these parking lots here. There are new LED pole-mounted lights proposed within each phase of this development. It'll only be for the front parking areas here in front of the building. A photometrics plan has been provided, and that shows no lighting spillover onto the adjacent properties from the parking lot lighting. Loading for the facility. You'll note here there is a loading space and an overhead door for secure access to phase one. Phase two is basically mirrored on this phase over here. You can see on the elevation plan, there is an overhead door, and this is the loading space for secure loading and unloading at the facility. There's also more than adequate loading space around the buildings for any deliveries that don't need secure access or transport. A traffic analysis was done. New London Turnpike has about 7,200 trips per day, with a peak hour of about 675 trips per hour. At full build out of the facility, there will be about 70 employees, about 60 of which will work from generally from 9 to 5. We looked at the peak hour leaving the facility and determined that there would be no negative impact to the traffic on New London Turnpike. And the city engineer has reviewed the traffic analysis as well. Utilities to the site. Sewer, water, gas, and electric are all available within New London Turnpike. Underground services will be brought from New London Turnpike through the new driveway entrance and serve the phase one and phase two head houses. These landscape areas here between the buildings will house the transformer pads and HVAC equipment for the operations of the building. The sewer and water in New London Turnpike are relatively new. They were constructed in the early 1990s. The power is overhead to poles along the London Turnpike. We'll take a service drop from there and run underground to the facility. And these plans had been reviewed by Norwich Public Utilities. And the applicant has been working closely with Norwich Public Utilities on the power and utilities to the facility. Stormwater from the site will be managed in several ways. From this western portion of the site, stormwater currently flows towards a grass depression that's located right in this area here, that has a catch basin top and a dry well located in the bottom. We intend to keep that same drainage pattern with the new development. The high point of the driveway entrance will be right about this area here. So this portion of the driveway and these parking areas will continue to flow to that grass depression. We're providing a riprap plunge pool to filter and collect any potential sands or sediments that come off the parking lot. We're also expanding the footprint and the depth of that depressed area. That will allow for a reduction in the peak water surface elevation in this depression through all storm events. There is no actual discharge from this basin. All of the stormwater collects and is discharged and infiltrated into the ground. And with this proposed development, by expanding the footprint, we're able to reduce the surface elevations that currently collect in that area. I can show on this aerial map. Stormwater from the north here, from Malerba's farm, as well as from the east along this steep embankment along the state property for Uncas on the Thames, all flow through the property and are directed to a low point right about here, about midway down on the southern property line. What we've proposed is to collect and divert the stormwater from those surrounding areas. So the stormwater from the north and the east will be collected in a grass swale. It'll be a 5-foot wide grass swale that'll divert that flow around the development to the southern property line, just like it does now. On site and within the development, we're proposing to direct the clean roof water into underground infiltration chambers. That's what these blue lines are here. So each side of the building will get infiltration chambers that the roof water is directed to put that water back into the ground and infiltrate it into the groundwater system. The surface water from the areas around the building and from the parking lots will be directed to a standard catch basin and culvert system. It'll be directed around the basin, around the buildings, and discharged into this stormwater management basin here. This basin again has riprap plunge pools at the discharges from the stormwater systems to help slow down any velocity and capture that first flush of sediment. There's also a forebay worked into the system here. This is right here. Again, to cleanse that initial first flush of sediment and some fluids that run off from the parking lot. That stormwater then continues to filter through the remains of the water quality basin to a discharge area right here at the southern property line. Again, right in about the same location where the stormwater currently exits the site and continues southerly. This basin is designed for the full build out of the facility. So it's designed for both phase 1 and phase 2. And there will be no discharge from this basin through the 10-year storm. So all storms through the 10-year storm will be collected and stored within this basin, and it will be infiltrated into the groundwater system. Prior to starting design on this project, we did do test pits throughout the site to figure out what the ground conditions were and what the soil conditions were. The soils in this area was a very nice sandy gravel with a very deep groundwater table, well below where our main basin will be. The permeabilities of the soils were very good, so that allows for good infiltration throughout the site through here. There will be a net reduction in the peak flow rates leaving the site. There will also be a reduction in the stormwater volume leaving the site. Again, this is accomplished by use of infiltration practices throughout the property from both the roof water, the front infiltration basin, as well as the stormwater management basin in the back. The stormwater management and the discharge meet the 2024 Deep Stormwater Quality Manual guidelines. And again, the city engineer has reviewed and approved this design. Landscaping for the development. Where mature vegetation is located on site, we're trying to save and protect that where it is feasible to do so. There are standard trees along the southern property here. There are also some smaller street trees that are along New London Turnpike that we're going to protect and save. There's also some mature vegetation between the residents that will be converted and the phase one development that we'll try and save as much as possible. We will supplement some street trees around the infiltration basin on the front along the London Turnpike here. We'll also provide some evergreen plantings along this edge of parking lot here to provide some screening to the buildings and the surrounding area. The buildings are screened somewhat by the residents in front of it and also by the office and restaurant space in front of the phase two development, but we'll provide some additional screening with the landscaping. We've also provided a series of native plantings within the parking lot to provide some shade and flowering trees within that parking area. The stormwater management basins will be planted with a New England seed mix that will have a blend of grasses and small shrub type grasses that will grow up within the basin, all suitable for periodic inundation from stormwater events and then drying out in between the stormwater events. During construction, we've provided a erosion and sedimentation control plan. All of the erosion and sedimentation controls will be installed in accordance with the 2024 Erosion and Sedimentation Control Manual. We've provided a site preparation plan that includes and establishes the perimeter ENS measures, the anti-tracking pad, the construction exit, stockpile and staging areas will all be done within the driving range area, as well as providing inlet sedimentation control measures in all catch basins in the work area. The two stormwater management basins will be used as temporary sediment traps. They'll be partially excavated and used as temporary sediment traps during construction. And then they will be fully excavated and restored for the final development. We have provided an ENS bond estimate for all the ENS measures for the project. The city engineer again has reviewed the ENS plan and the bond estimate and has approved both. Finally, post-construction, we've provided an operations and maintenance program for the stormwater infrastructure and for the parking lots. That is included on the site plan set. It is also included in our stormwater management report. That includes things like sweeping the parking lots twice per year, cleaning out catch basins twice per year, inspections and monitoring of the infiltration chambers to ensure that no sediments are collected in there, no issues, as well as periodic operations and inspections of the stormwater management basins and make sure the vegetation is healthy and no erosion is occurring in those. And with that, I will pass back to Michael or David if you guys want to give a brief rundown of your operations.
How's it going? My name is Michael Pierpont. I'm the Director of Cultivation for Quinnipiac Valley Growth Partners. We'd be acting as the tenant for this proposed facility if approved. As mentioned by Jerry and Kyle, I just wanted to reiterate one of the main points of the operation, which is that this proposed facility by DCP standards is considered an indoor facility. And that gives us a number of advantages when trying to mitigate some of the major concerns associated with cannabis cultivation facilities. I just wanted to start first with odor, as that's a very, very big concern with cannabis cultivation facilities. There's really two key features that our facility has in terms of mitigating odor. One is the design of the facility. With being an indoor facility, we're able to control the volume and frequency of exhausted air. And what that also allows us to do is to treat that exhausted air prior to it leaving the enclosed facility. One way that we intend on addressing or treating the exhausted air is through a FOGCO system. So FOGCO system is one of the best solutions possible for cannabis odor. It's typically used in landfill situations, cannabis facilities, as well as waste treatment facilities. It goes above and beyond trying to mask odors by offering an odor that overpowers the cannabis odor. It actually neutralizes chemically the odor prior to leaving the facility. So we wanted to definitely make note of that during this presentation. Another advantage of an indoor facility is the security aspect. So our facility, aside from having a gate in the front of the facility that prevents any cars or vehicles from traveling into the facility, as you can see, Kyle is pointing out where that takes place in the facility. By having an indoor facility, it really ensures that we have full control over the access in the facility and the security aspect of surveillancing the facility. A couple ways we do this are perimeter alarms, motion detection systems, video of all production areas and entrances and exits, duress panic alarm to signal any law enforcement needs, silent alarms, automatic dialers, failure notification systems to the facility and key employees, as well as a generator and backup alarm in case of power loss. On top of that, we also have ways to, or a plan to address some of the waste products associated with cannabis facilities. We treat waste in two categories, one being cultivation related waste, as well as standard kind of facility waste as well. So we wanted to just address some points on that. In terms of cultivation related waste, the state regulations require all plant waste products to be rendered unusable, which we obviously intend to do. We're going to be partnering with a waste removal service for all organic and inorganic production. We intend to haul away and render organic waste unusable. Any organic waste that has not been rendered unrecoverable will be securely locked inside the facility at all times within that enclosed facility. In terms of standard office waste, inorganic waste from the administration and office operations will be disposed of in a dumpster and regularly hauled away. And then in terms of sewer and nutrients, we'll try to filter out as much as possible, as well as using the catch basins that Kyle has referenced on this site plan. But we also wanted to include that, our standard concentration of nutrients is roughly around 1,400 parts per million of total macro and micronutrients. A smaller portion of those is nitrogen and phosphorus, which is, the big two macronutrients that are most highly regulated and monitored. And those concentrations coming from this facility are far, far below any standard agricultural usages. So we wanted to just include those points. Other than that, I think we're open to any questions or concerns that the committee may have.
Any questions from the commission?
I have one question. So what are we looking at for, like, say, total number of plants that you plan on having in this facility?
Certainly, yeah. So, well, in terms of plants in the greenhouse, our spacing is about a plant every 8 square feet or so. So in terms of the total amount of greenhouse space for phase 1, each greenhouse is 12,960 square feet. Across 3 greenhouses would be about 39,000 square feet, divided by about 8 per square feet. What's worth noting in the greenhouse is that there's actually a corridor space that spans from the head house across all 3 of the greenhouses, so that they can be accessed. And that corridor space does not qualify as canopy. So canopy only takes place in those sections. So for a total number of plants, given that there's 5 cycles per year in each grow bay, at any singular time, we're looking at a few thousand plants throughout this facility for phase 1, and that will be nearly duplicated in phase 2, with the exception of the absence of the 3rd greenhouse on phase 2. That being said, individual number of plants is an interesting metric to measure by, as size of plants at different facilities can certainly vary. Some people have plants that they vegetate for 8 weeks, others vegetate for 2 weeks. So the initial plant count, I don't think is probably the best metric to try to measure that, but the we could definitely discuss overall yields or different metrics to try to analyze any concerns that the plant count may be associated with.
And the other question I have is, aside from what you listed for security for the buildings, is there going to be any kind of like external fencing around the property or anything to discourage trespassers?
So by DCP regulations, and we had a meeting ahead of time to kind of discuss this. By DCP regulations, because we're classified as an indoor grow and not an outdoor grow, we're not required by DCP to put 12-foot fencing around the perimeter. However, we went above and beyond what those regulations are to at least have the gate that we've mentioned to prevent any sort of vehicles from accessing the property. Aside from that, the permanent structures, the head house and the greenhouses themselves, they are they're 14-foot tall walls, metal double insulated walls that therefore probably surpass a 12-foot perimeter fencing is kind of how we look at that.
Any other questions? Anything from the staff?
Yeah, I would just ask Kyle, now that you've had a little minute to catch your breath, if you could review the special permit criteria for the commission.
Yeah, sure, I can do that.
Thank you.
Would you like me to go through each item?
Yeah, and you don't have to read them word for word, but just kind of generally, if you can show it on your screen and then kind of go through them for everyone.
Let me see.
Or I can bring them up if you need me to bring them up.
Yeah, would you mind, Dan, if you have those handy?
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. The first item in the special permit criteria, 7.7.6.1, the proposed use must be consistent with the current Norwich Plan of Conservation and Development. The proposed development is consistent with this. It provides for aesthetics, lighting improvements, and the parking facility will reduce visual and parked vehicle clutter along the London Turnpike, consistent with the planning themes. Additionally, it will provide additional value to the grand list, which will generate additional funds usable for municipal projects in the school system within Norwich. The facility offers competitive pay, stable employment, and training opportunities, which help Norwich develop its nascent cannabis business community. The next section, 7.7.6.2, the location, size of the site, nature, and intensity of the operation involved and conducted in the use, and the location of the site with respect to the streets giving access to it must be such that the use will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the district in which it is located and will promote the welfare of the city. Firstly, the site's located on the London Turnpike between Route 82 and Route 32 and Trading Cove. New London Turnpike has more than enough vehicle capacity for the site and for the proposed use. It's also in harmony with the neighborhood. You'll remember back at the aerial plan that I had, the Malerba's farm and farm stand is located just north, which is a very similar use to the cannabis facility. The next section, 7.7.6.3, the design elements of the proposed development must be attractive and suitable in relation to the site characteristics, the style of the buildings in the immediate area, and the existing and probable future use of the neighborhood in which it is located. Again, the design features, it's a greenhouse space, it's a metal building. The Norwich ice rink across the street is a metal building. Also, the greenhouses to the Malerbus facility to the north of this are very similar in characteristics. So this is not out of character or out of and fits in with the character of the neighborhood. The location, nature, and heights of the buildings, walls, fences, and the nature and extent of the planned activities in the landscape on the site must be such that the use will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent land or buildings or impair the value thereof. Again, this building, this facility meets the character of the neighborhood. The height of the building will be about 22 feet at the peak, so it does fit in with the surrounding buildings and the scale of the buildings around it. Again, to the north is the Malerbus Farm. To the east is a steep embankment that's heavily wooded for the state and the Uncas on the Thames property. So development on this site does not inhibit any development or impair anything elsewhere or impair the value of anything surrounding. Next, the proposed use or activity must have no adverse effect upon the neighboring area resulting from the use of signs, exposed artificial lights, colored lights of any nature, flashing lights, loudspeakers, or noise-making devices. As noted, there's very limited signing for the property. There's no signing on the building. We have shown a potential monument sign out in front by New London Turnpike. That would be subject to a zoning permit in the future if they decide to put that up. And as noted, the lighting, we've provided a photometrics plan for the site parking lot lighting that shows no spillover or impact onto the neighboring properties. Also, there are no loudspeakers or anything like that that happen at the facility. Next, in cases where it is proposed to convert a structure designed and built originally for other uses, the structure must be adaptable for the proposed use from the point of view of public health and safety. The bulk of the project is the construction of the new facility along the driving range property. However, the two buildings that are on site will be reused and are suitable for reuse. The existing residence is capable of being reused as storage and office space. And again, the driving range office and the Millie's restaurant, while those will cease operations, they are still designated as use for future office or restaurant space for the time being. Next, the design, location, and specific details of the proposed use or activity must not adversely affect safety in the streets, nor unreasonably increase traffic congestion in the area, nor interfere with the pattern of traffic circulation in such a manner as to create or worsen unsafe traffic conditions. As previously noted, we have provided a traffic analysis that indicates the anticipated number of employees, trips per day, and trips per day in the London Turnpike. And it found that there's no negative impact on the traffic in New London Turnpike. And the entrance drive has been designed to with radii on all sides, on all each corner, to allow for traffic and the trucks to enter and exit the property. The parking area or areas must be of adequate size for the particular use and be suitably screened from adjoining residential uses, and entrance and exit drives must be laid out to prevent traffic hazards and nuisances. As I just noted about the entrance drive, there are adequate radii on each corner to allow safe traffic in and out of the parking area. And again, the parking area is designed to meet the zoning regulations. The number of spaces and sizes of the parking spaces meet the zoning regulations. And we've provided screening within and around the parking area with landscape, and we've tried to preserve natural landscape that's mature and existing around that as best we can. Next up, streets, drives, and other rights of way must be of such size, condition, and capacity in terms of capacity, width, grade, alignment, and visibility to adequately accommodate the traffic to be generated by the particular use. Again, the direct exit from the facilities in the London Turnpike that we've run the traffic analysis on, and shows that it has more than adequate capacity to handle the development, as well as the roads further down, whether it's Route 82 or to the west or south, Route 32. Both of those state roadways have more than adequate capacity to accommodate any of this development here. Next, the provisions for water supply, sewage disposal, and stormwater drainage must conform to accepted engineering practices, comply with all standards of the appropriate regulatory authority, and must not unduly burden the capacity of such facilities. Again, as I noted, Norwich Public Utilities has sewer, water, gas, and electric facilities in New London Turnpike. They have reviewed these plans, and there is capacity for this development with the utilities. We've also done the stormwater drainage analysis, and that complies with both the city and the DEEP 2024 Stormwater Quality Manual. And the city engineer has reviewed and approved those stormwater measures. Next up, the proposed use or activity must provide easy accessibility for fire apparatus and police protection, and must be laid out and equipped to further the provision of emergency vehicles. Again, we've laid out the driveway to be basically a straight shot from New London Turnpike directly into the facility. As noted by the applicant, the gate will have automatic permit for emergency access and fire and police vehicles or ambulances to reach the facility. We've also provided, as part of the water system, we've provided a hydrant out in the middle of the parking lot to allow any fire apparatus to tie into that should a fire occur. There's also more than adequate width of the travelways around the buildings for fire apparatus or any emergency vehicles to fully circle the buildings in both phases. Appropriate consideration shall be given to the protection, preservation, and/or enhancement of natural, scenic, historic, and unique resources, including, where appropriate, the use of conservation restrictions to protect, permanently preserve natural, scenic, historic, and unique features which enhance the character and environment of the area. As noted, that the site's not within a historic or scenic district. It's historically been used as an open space driving range, primarily with a restaurant and a small residence on site as well. Existing natural features, we are trying to preserve the what mature vegetation is on site. And we'll provide additional plantings to enhance and provide the screening from New London Turnpike and the surrounding areas. And finally, adequate provisions must be made for the sustained maintenance of proposed development, structures, streets, and other improvements. The applicant and the facility is committed to ongoing maintenance as a core operational component of their facility. In addition to local, state, and federal compliance for all the operations and maintenance of the facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take another break there. Appreciate that.
Anything else from staff?
I'll just go through my memo real quick. Let's see. Referred out to other departments for comment. All comments have been addressed, or I received a comment of no comment. As Kyle has outlined, and the applicant team, they had a very detailed narrative outlining phasing, hours of operation, safety. Kyle just went through all of the responses there. We do have the hard copies of the proof of mailing. The site is located within a highly sensitive area for archaeological resources. Been previously disturbed. It's not anticipated it will be an issue, but we have to note we put on the plan set that if anything's found, that we're notified immediately for further instruction and evaluation. There are no waiver requests for this application, and should someone decide to make a favorable motion relative to the application, I have a number of bullet points that I would appreciate I don't have to read to you, but you include in your motion. I have suggested reasons here as well. And I can bring up the exhibit list to add to the record, ask that you, well,
Sure, why don't we do that?
sure.
Okay, so here is the exhibit list for everybody to take a look at. And if we're all satisfied with the exhibit list, can somebody make a motion to waive the reading?
I'll make that motion.
A motion by Ella to waive reading of the exhibit list. Do we have a second?
Jason, I'll second.
Second by Jason.
I couldn't read that list. Can somebody read that list? It's just a headache.
Say it again.
Can somebody read the list? I could not read the list.
Oh, we're trying to waive the reading. You can't read it from
I
there?
don't want to read all the details, just the,
You put it up on the
you
screen.
have the list up there.
The exhibit list?
Yeah, he wants to see it on the screen.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Just quickly. What's the?
The list of exhibits received.
Yep.
So it's everything
Okay,
in the
and we're
folder for the
asking-
record.
We've made a motion to waive reading of it.
Okay, well, give me a second then. Just let me read it. Well, let's see.
Well, it's, the reason for waiving the reading of the list, Jim, is to save time from reading.
So what
Okay.
normally we would do, I guess to clarify, is we would go through and say exhibit 1 is
The
the application. Number 2 is the
Right.
deeds, you know, and we would go through and read that and say the dates they were received, with the datas on them, the date they're received.
It's just to get the exhibits on the
On the
record.
record.
Correct.
So
And
we're
I-
just, it's all on a written form instead of going through each page and reading you each thing. We just do it that way and it's
That's
a
good.
list.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
We just add one thing would be Kyle's presentation plans from tonight. We added number 21.
So we
Okay,
have a
I'm good with
motion, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Excuse me.
So, that being said, is there anybody else who wishes to speak in favor of the application at this time? Anybody who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Last time, anybody who wishes to speak in favor? Anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application?
I have a question on the application. I'm not necessarily against it or for it, but I'm just having a question about it.
Okay, what's your question?
Okay. On the items that the CLA engineer mentioned before, item 7.7.6, claims it would not impair further development of that area. I'm just curious, how many acres are would be left back there once this project would be through? There's quite a bit of land there. And I'm just curious how much land is back there, how much land would be taken up by this project?
Look like about 85% of the parcel.
That's actually,
What the acreage is? Was it 9 acres? Yeah.
yes, the acreage is about 9.8 acres in total. The project itself will take up, will disturb about 8.4 acres of the site in total. A portion of that back area will be the stormwater management basin and some of that grass swale. So that won't be it's included in the disturbance number, but not in an actual development or a structure or anything like that.
Okay, so I didn't see the complete map of the whole area. So when it says would not impair further development of the area, what if someone came in and wanted to put a small housing development or a small hotel in there? Do you think that would impair it just because it's a cannabis?
You're talking about adjacent properties.
Adjacent properties, yeah.
There's 3 Rivers Golf Course and the farm. Those are the three surrounding properties.
Right,
And then on the back end, it's state property.
and then the golf course, not the golf course, the driving range they're using,
It's gone.
it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no other land around it that could be used for any other type of
Not really.
development. Yeah. And that's my question, and my answer, thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? I'm gonna ask one more time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, then I will take a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by L. Miles to close the public hearing. We have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Dean Mason to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing has been closed. My understanding, there's no waivers that need to be addressed. And so if anybody wants to make a motion in connection with the application, now's the time to do it.
I'll make a motion for approval, as long as it includes Dan's memo and bullet points. Because the proposal conforms to the ZR section 2.4, chapter 5, ZR section 7.5 and 7.7 of the zoning regulation.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with conditions. Do we have a second?
This is Jason. I'll second that motion.
Second by Jason. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous as far as I can tell. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, so next matter on the agenda is special permit 24-09, 40R Franklin Street, AKA 30-6 Franklin Street. Request for a special permit for a proposed cannabis and beverage manufacturing business. No associated site improvements, property of Bulletin Building. Application of Connecticut Cannabis Courier 1 LLC. Assessors map 102, block 3, lot 25, zone CC. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of the application? Or present the application?
Yes, good afternoon. How you doing? My name is Brian Essenter on behalf of Connecticut Cannabis Courier.
Okay, thank you. Brian, do you want to go ahead and make your presentation?
I'd be happy to. So how you doing, everybody? My name is Brian Essenter. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Connecticut Cannabis.
Brian, can you spell your last name for our clerk, please?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. It's Essenter. It's ESSENTER.
Thank you.
No problem. So as I said, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Connecticut Cannabis Company. I'm also a pharmacist, have a master's in integrative and functional medicine with a concentration in cannabis medicine. And I've worked in the Connecticut cannabis industry for over 10 years now. Connecticut Cannabis Company has a provisional license for cannabis food and beverage manufacturing that was issued by the Department of Consumer Protection. And we're seeking a special permit to operate the cannabis manufacturing business within the scope authorized by the Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection at 40R Franklin Street. I'm here today with the rest of our team, our founder, Philip Lauderdale, and Rich Thomas, and our operations with Eric Kurzer and Stephen Doyle, and our general contractor, Mark Cooperstein. So if there's any other questions, they'll be happy to help answer as well. I'm happy to go through the application as to
Hold on, Brian.
Sorry.
yeah, sorry, please.
So we did make a motion.
No, we
No.
didn't do that.
Okay, my bad. We gotta open the public hearing. So can we have a motion to open the public hearing then? I'm sorry, my mistake here.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No problem, not a problem at all. So I'm happy to go through our request for the waiver in the application. as well as our narrative as to why our proposed special permit complies with section 7.7.6 as well, and answer any questions that you might have for us.
Okay. You want to go ahead and make your presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, apologize. So we are, as I said, a food and beverage manufacturer. We're looking to be located at 40 R Franklin Street. And we're not planning on making any changes to the building whatsoever. We are not putting up any signage. We're not even really making any major changes to the inside of the building. What we're looking to do is we are building a kitchen and a prefab with essentially a shipping container that will be all to food standards and GMP standards, and it will be shipped with the fire suppression system involved. It will have the HVAC installed as well. The only things that we'll have to be doing with the building will be running the electrical and the plumbing. The DEA cage that we're getting will be shipped in pieces that will be put together by our contractor. And other than that, at the time, other than some security that we're planning on installing, we're really not planning on making any other changes to the facility at all.
So is this on the first floor of the building?
Yes, this is on the first floor. This used to be a gym. Yep, there we go. So it used to be the gym. It's going to be on the, if you're looking at it from the street, it's the far left side of the building next to, I believe it's Elysium Brewery.
Okay.
So just to orient, if I can, this is the loading dock that's on the Bath Street side of the building.
Yeah.
And there's a large open space where there was a gym. That's what he's referring to.
Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, sorry. So yeah, I mean, it's really kind of that simple. We're going to have the kitchen pre-made off-site. It's going to be sent on a trailer that it'll be moved in with the forklift. The DEA cage will be sent in the 5 pieces, the sides, the top, and the door, which will be put together on site as well. The office space you can see to the bottom right is what we'll be using for our office space down there. Otherwise, all of our everything that we're doing, all of our production will take place in the kitchen and in the DEA cage as well. So in the kitchen, we're going to be, our only plan is to be making gummies at this point. We're not planning on making any other food products. We will not have any open flames. We're only planning on using about 3 to 4 gallons of water that will all be going right into the gummies. They're not anticipating any waste or anything like that. There will be a grease trap installed on the connection to the plumbing as well, just to ensure that there's nothing entering the water. And, there really shouldn't be any other waste that we have. We are not going to be cultivating anything. We are not going to be selling anything. So there should not be any issues with any odor mitigation of any sort. And we are planning on putting in odor mitigation as well, but we're not planning on that being any kind of an issue with anything that we're making. This is much more of a kitchen than a cannabis facility.
Okay, anything else you want to tell the commission?
I don't believe there's anything else. It's really pretty simple. Any products that we get coming in as far as cannabis would be in the form of an oil, which would go directly into our DEA cage and our refrigerator there. We shouldn't be having a significant number of deliveries. We have only about 5 to 7 employees, so it shouldn't affect any traffic or parking or anything like that. There's, as I said, we're not doing anything with the outside of the building, so there should be no changes whatsoever to, any runoff or anything like that either. And like I said, I'm happy to go through the full waiver request and the narrative as to why we belong under the special permit as well.
Yeah, I think if you could do that for us, it will be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem at all. So going through the waiver request documentation. So section 1 was the bond estimate. So in accordance with the applicant's described use and minimal intended alterations, only the inside of the facility is going to be applicable. There is not any anticipated or reasonably foreseeable that any of the following will be applicable to the tenant's use. That includes any installation or maintenance of erosion or sedimentation control, restoration of site to a pre-construction condition, site improvements needed to ensure public safety and site access, including sidewalks, roads, lighting. We shouldn't need any drainage improvements, maintenance of erosion and sedimentation control, and there shouldn't be any site cleanup of debris, abandoned vehicles, or any other material that would cause a deterioration of the condition in the area. Section 2, copies of the drainage calculations. We asked to waive that because, as described above, we will not be making any material alterations to the building, nor is it anticipated that we will require material amounts of water or other liquids. Any water or liquids will be incorporated into applicant's final finished products. The consumption of drainage water is anticipated to be supported by existing infrastructure and less than the previous use of the space, which was the gym, which also had some showers in there as well. And less than that of any other neighboring tenants, such as the brewery or anything like that. And as such, we are not having any additional impact on the provisions for water supply, sewage disposal, or storm and water drainage. And as such, do not feel that we should be burdened with the color renderings of the elevation. So we have included the stamped architectural drawings of the facility in the installment plan. And we are not making any modifications to the existing structure or its facade, or adding anything on top of the structure. As such, request a waiver of the requirement to provide 2 color renderings of the elevations. The A2 survey and the reference there too with certification to its accuracy. We request that the commission waive the requirement to include the survey. We are not going to be making any changes to the site or the existing structure itself. As such, we request a waiver of the requirement to submit a site plan and the architectural drawings of the interior plans for the space submitted with this application suffice as the site plan. The elevation drawings of the proposed buildings and details for all signage. So we request that the commission waive the requirement to include elevation drawings of all proposed buildings and details for signage. We will not be building any structures at the site, nor erecting any signage outside of the site at this time. Number 8, letters from the city engineer, Connecticut DOT, or copies of permits received, such as variances, special permits, wetland approvals, or outside agency approval. Pursuant to section 7.5.2.4 of the regulations, we request that the commission waive the above requirement if applicable. However, the applicant does not believe any outside agency approval is required for its use and installation of the type referenced in this application. In addition, the property is within the Coastal Area Management District, but believe the application is exempt from coastal site plan review pursuant to section 3.2.2.7 and 0.8 of the zoning regulations, which exempts interior modifications to the building and minor changes in use to building structure or property exempt to those changes occurring on property adjacent to or abutting coastal lands and water resources. While generally special permit applications require companion site plan review, we believe it is not necessary here pursuant to section 7.7.2.1, and will confirm same with that there are no physical changes proposed to the site or building or structure, and a site plan is not necessary for the commission to evaluate the proposal, which requests approval of the proposed use of companion tenant fit out of existing building. Separately, the applicant has attached a copy of its provisional license from the state of Connecticut to operate a cannabis food and beverage license in accordance with the RIRACA, which is the state licensing. And I'm happy to go through the narrative as well if anybody has any other questions.
Any other questions at this time?
One question, did you speak to hours and days of operation?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably wouldn't be open. We're planning on being open about 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Don't anticipate any weekend hours at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, if you could go through the criteria quickly.
Absolutely. So the proposed use must be consistent with the current plan of Norwich Conservation and Development. Connecticut Cannabis Company believes that its intended use will not disturb the city's historic character, as all activities will take place inside the premises with no signage, odor, or excess noise being produced outside of the facility. Facility is also not open to the public, and only authorized employees will be permitted to enter the premises. We also believe that our use will improve the economic conditions and align with the objectives of the downtown plan development, bringing new jobs opportunities to the historic district of Norwich. Question number 2. So as stated above, the facility will only be accessible to authorized employees. As such, we do not anticipate any material impact to the streets, parking, or any other businesses in the vicinity. Any required parking for the Connecticut Cannabis Company's delivery vehicles and employees, roughly 5 parking spaces, would be within or less than the previous approved use of the space. Number 3, the design elements. We intend to make no alterations to the outside of the building or any existing areas. Number 5, the location nature. Again, we don't intend to make any alterations to the outside of the building or any existing areas. Number 5, all of our manufacturing will take place inside the prefabricated kitchen, inside of the facility. So again, there will be no outside signage, artificial or colored lighting, any loudspeakers, or any loud noise-making devices. Number 6, our manufacturing will be taking place inside the fabricated GMP standard kitchen. So again, no existing structures that will be adapted or converted for our use. Number 7, all activities and manufacturing will be done inside the facility and inside the prefabricated kitchen. Our employees, which should only be about 4 to 5 people at a time, would be entering the facility. All employees will park in our pre-designed tenant parking spots at 66 Foundry, and no traffic pattern should be affected. And number 8, we have designated parking lot for our employees. We will need limited parking for such employees, which will be similar or less than the parking provided previously approved in accordance with section 5.13.2 of the Norwich zoning regulations, all of such employees drove and parked at the facility. In addition, the facility is readily accessible by public transportation, and where practical, we will encourage employees to carpool and or utilize public transportation and provide reasonable assistance with public transportation costs. Number 9, the facility will not be open to the public as discussed above. The employees entering the facility will not generate any material use increase of traffic generation from prior conditions. As such, the existing streets, drives, and other right-of-way are more than adequate to accommodate the traffic to be generated by our proposed use. Number 10, we anticipate that we will be using only about 3 to 4 gallons of water per day for all operations, materially, all of which will be consumed in our products. We will use the existing water supply, sewage disposal, and stormwater drainage. We will install the grease trap in our drain to prevent any cooking oils from entering the draining system, and far less water would be used for our purposes than any previous usage and neighboring. Number 11, our facility plan is attached to the application. We believe do not impede fire apparatus or police protection. The prefabricated kitchen will come with its own dry chemical fire suppression system contained within the pod, and the alarms will be tied into the existing alarm system in the facility. If any security or fire alarm inside of our facility is triggered, the secure doors will allow for emergency personnel to have access. Number 12, we do not intend to alter the exterior of the building or impact the natural, scenic, or historic and unique resources of the Chelsea Central District. And number 13, outside of the building, the landlord is providing existing services such as landscaping, snow removal, and general upkeep, as it does for all tenants of 66 Foundry. Inside the building, no changes will be made to the existing facility that will require sustained maintenance. All of our equipment will be prefabricated and installed by professionals. We will maintain all manufacturing equipment in accordance with GMP. The Department of Consumer Protection will oversee compliance with all state regulations. And just one more thing, the state of Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection does require us to actually have 2 separate alarms We have an external alarm, which has an auditory portion of it, and our internal alarm, which has like a silent alarm for any, if there was any sort of robbery or anything like.
Anything else?
I believe that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from the commission? Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application? Anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application? Okay, hearing no response, anybody wish to speak in opposition to the application? Anybody wish to speak in opposition? Hearing no response, I would then ask at this point to address the waivers that are requested.
Frank, if you don't mind, if I can go through.
You want to do
real
your
quick.
memo?
Not much to add here. I received comments of no comment from everyone. CEO, MPU, fire marshal, building official, Uncas Health, and the city engineer. Brian just went through the detailed narrative. He did submit waiver request for a number of items that you need to act on. First, just went through the special permit criteria. I do have the copies of the mailing, and I do have some suggested conditions here and a suggested reason. I'll also share the exhibit list just to get that out of the way. Ask that you wait at the beginning of that. That was short.
Does somebody want to make a motion to waive the reading of the exhibit list?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ella to waive the reading of the list. Second.
Jason, I'll second that motion.
Second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's waived. Do you want to address the other waivers now?
Yeah,
Or
so
after?
it would be, well, I don't know if you want to do that after you vote.
Yeah, you would do that after.
All right, so we'll have a motion to close.
Yeah, then you had to come.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion by Dean, second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing is closed, and I guess at this time, the first thing to take up the waiver requests by the applicant, and it's several of them. As I understand it, looking for a waiver of the bond estimate, drainage calculations, color elevations, color renderings of elevations, survey, elevations of the buildings and signage, outside agency approvals, and a site plan. Is that everything?
It's the kitchen sink, yes.
Okay, so, somebody want to make a motion in connection with the request for the waiver?
This is Jason. I'd like to make a motion to waive the request.
To waive the,
Approve the waive request.
approve the waiver request, as I just mentioned. Thank you. Okay, can we get a second on that?
Says I'll second.
Do we have a second to approve the waiver requests? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the waiver requests have been approved. That being said, does somebody want to make a motion in connection with the merits of the application?
Dan, you did have some notes or.
Yep, they're up here on the screen.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve this application as long as it includes Dan's bullet points and statements above. Due to the proposal conforms to the ZR section 2.6, chapter 5, ZR section 7.5 and 7.7 of the zoning regulations.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve with the conditions set forth in Dan's memo and the reasons set forth there. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nobody opposed, so the application is approved. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any old business. I don't see any extension requests or bond releases. We have other business, the calendar for next year, 2025.
Yeah, just a note that the clerk's office asked for it previous to the meeting.
Have we,
so-
do we have one yet or not?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. So was it provided to them? No, we
No,
can
it's
send it
not.
to you.
It'll come out to you. The first two meetings of the year are moved back a week due to holidays, and then everything else falls.
Do we need a motion to approve them?
You don't. Well, so that's the whole thing is we all got it here to be approved and the clerk's office pushed back saying that it's not something that you need to approve, that we set the schedule and that's the way, kind of the city does. I always like to make sure that no one had conflicts. If everyone's gonna be on vacation that whole week and at a time, I would like to know, so if you see something on the calendar, it's gonna be, a lot of you see things, let us know because we can always cancel that meeting and do a special meeting. So we always have that option anyways, but they're really getting to wanting those calendars earlier and earlier, like they start bugging us like August and September, they want the calendar for next year. So that's why it makes it hard to do that. So in the future, you don't need to approve it, but let us know if you know that there's gonna be times you'll be out. And if we get a bunch of you out, you might just want to plan ahead for a special meeting.
Okay. Any staff report?
We've been just busy. We got the city got some grants recently and,
Yeah.
so we've got
CIF
another
awards.
$7.8 million for Cape Heart. So total together was like 11 something like that. Yeah, because another 4. So it was
Almost 12, yeah.
$11.8 million for Cape Heart remediation. And that doesn't include the park, making the, creating the park. That's just all that should cover all the remediation. We're hopeful that the remediation will come in less than that. So we'll be able to use some of that funds to create the park. That's the ultimate goal there. And then the city.
What would the timeframe of that be?
Oh, soon, like,
Yeah.
yeah, we have actually, 3 grants for
grants
Cape
for
Heart.
Cape
Cape Heart. So we have a small one,
Yeah.
which was doing some updating of some of the documents, it was like $52,000 and to do updated, soils report and, remediation action plan. So that's gonna happen really soon. And then the second, amount of money that we got for it was the original $4 million. And, so we're already starting those contracts with the state. So the 52,000, I think I'm just gonna say 52 around.
64.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Somewhere less than 100,000.
906, so.
Yeah, whatever. That one is DEP, so we have a total agreement signed thing with them. And then the other is the DECD brownfields, which was the original, the 4 million. And then NCDC was the one that got the next 7.8, but we're working with them because
To roll it. to
yeah, to
brownfields.
roll it in with the other one to kind of make it work
Streamline.
together. So they're gonna give it to the Brownfields division instead of CIF, so it gets added on to what we already have. It just makes it easier to manage them. We're asking to use our Brownfields consultant that the city had interviewed for to use GZA, so we don't have to go out for rebidding for consultants since they've done work already and they help with the application and they've already done some stuff out there for us. So we're asking for that waiver of having to bid because we've already done that. We went out for professional services previously. We're just really busy. What else is going on? The next round is coming up for CIF. We're going to put in again for Norwich State Hospital. We've now put in twice for $250,000, which is their small pot of, lowest amount you can ask for, and it's for planning grants. And the first time they wanted one more detail from us, we didn't get it. We corrected it with a timeline. The second one, we've actually got amazing feedback, but since the city received $2 million for the waterfront and another 7.8 for Cape Heart, they were like, yeah,
You can wait.
they basically said, we're not gonna give you 250,000 on top of that, but they really liked our application. So they were like, they've actually told us, put it in for the third time. They really want to fund it, but we have to stop somewhat. They kind of said, stop competing with ourselves because we put in big ones and we want to fund the big ones. They may not give us the little ones, but the money for, Norwich State Hospital is really important for us to do a planning study there to determine what the highest and best use would be. And it goes really in sync with our zoning regulations that we're working on too, because we need to figure out what is that, so what's the appropriate zoning and uses there. And be working with our POCD and then tying it into the zoning regs. So I think that also was a really good, angle to take to get the grant to this next time. We didn't really add that in about working on our zoning
How many
regulations.
acres do we have there?
We don't own the Norwich State Hospital.
No, but
It's, God,
Multiple
50 acres,
parcels.
40
it's two
acres.
parcels, one on each side of the road.
Well,
Is it like 40?
Somewhere around 40 acres.
Something like that. Yeah, so something like that. So,
the state owns a chunk too.
yeah, the state owns a chunk and the tribe owns a chunk. So there's all in that area there too.
the
Not,
area,
not the-
area you're looking to modify zoning for, what side
It
of
would-
that
It
area?
would study the whole area.
study the whole area, yes,
okay.
study the whole area, but we really want to know specifically what is beneficial for the city, for the public, and also that we get the highest and best taxable use there and all that kind of thing. So we want to look at it from different angles from a planning perspective.
We don't want to be the parking lot for.
Exactly.
Yeah, or something that's, look, we're afraid if we don't get this at some point that the owner may just, go with that, whoever wants to buy it from him, and it could be the low hanging fruit that doesn't have any real plans for the property. And we just don't want to see it keep changing hands to someone who's not going to do anything with it, or do something that's just not going to benefit the city in any way. So we really need this, and so we're working on that.
So speaking of the zoning regulations, I'd say we're 25% of the way through that process, getting ready to start to meet.
Yeah, so we're gonna, if we get this planning grant, we'll probably drag out the zoning regs. We were hoping to maybe have hearings next summer, maybe it'll be next fall, something like that, because we want to make sure that we get it right.
The consultant's working on reorganizing and streamlining.
Well, some of the things we already have, because some of the things are still good, so we're looking at what we still have is good, looking at the POCD, merging that in. We will be meeting with all different boards and commissions, but really it's, as you well know, it's the council, that's the zoning authority that's going to adopt the zoning regulations, and you will be able to obviously comment them, and there'll be a referral to you. So we want to, probably ask to meet with council members, maybe two at a time, just individually to go over where we're at along the way. So it's not council meetings, it just makes it convenient. So bipartisan kind of thing too. So we're not.
There'll be public meetings too.
Yeah, oh, and obviously we're gonna be out doing public meetings and getting input. So we'll start that soon. We're thinking in the winter, or maybe early
After the
spring.
holidays.
Yeah, something like that, to go out and start having those.
I
public
think
meetings.
that's about it. There's a little thing going on next weekend.
Oh, the strut is this weekend. Come downtown for the strut. It's so fun. And, at least you think it's fun. You know you do. And you think it's fun. It's really, it's nice. The city hall's orange and purple and green, and it looks like I don't know, a haunted house. It's very cool. Yeah, so you gotta come down and see, and come in costume. It's really fun. It's a really great family event. So if you have children or grandchildren that come, it's really geared towards kids, which, make kids feel safe. The police are gonna be involved this year, having a meet and treat. So you meet a police officer and get a candy kind of thing too. We really want to integrate that. Little corn maze this year, Frank. We have a little Tots corn maze we're doing, so.
Something I could get lost in.
Yeah. So that's like my biggest headache of this year so far is the corn maze, but we'll get it done. Let's see what else. I did want to say some other things we're working on though.
Is Callista Hotel open?
It is. It's very, I've recommended
Has
friends.
anybody ever stayed there?
I've had my
Yeah,
friends.
someone.
My friend stayed there twice because she came from out of state, and she stayed there the first time, and they lost their power. That's when the city lost their power for something. I don't know what it was. We had a power outage and they had no generator there.
Yeah.
And so she was like, it's pitch black in there. There's no generator. You'd think the hotel would have it. So eventually the power came on. I came back to get her so we could hang out and not be sitting in a dark hotel room. And we did some stuff together, and then the power came on as I was dropping her off, which was great. And then she was hoping the next time she got there, she'd get a little bit of a discount. I think she might have. I think she reminded him, hey, I stayed here after. But when she was there, it was very empty. I think it was two people. in the
I
hotel.
never see any.
I
cars
think on the
over there.
weekends, they do much better. They do better when there's concerts and things going on. Events at the casino brings up, I don't think that their highlight is during the middle of the week kind of thing. Ponema Mills is moving along. So is Eden Hughes is moving along. Everything is. Who's doing a lot of the exterior work. Even Hale Mill they're doing all the rooms. I asked Dan about it recently. They're really moving on Hale Mill. The big thing the building officials are really busy with is the sewer treatment plant. So we only have 3 building officials. And so if you hear complaints out in the community that their inspections are taking a long time, we have a 2-week waiting list now for inspections. So when you pull a permit, ask for your inspection, right? You know, schedule your inspection, like when you go to your doctors to get your appointment for your next one, do the same thing because we are very, with, you know, sewer treatment plant's huge and there's a lot of time that needs to go in there, a lot. These projects are big, we're really busy.
What's going on at the marina?
Marina is moving along. I mean, we got the grant for, the
Fuel tanks.
the fuel tanks, they got, yeah, the fuel tanks will be taken care of there. And then planning of what's gonna happen with the, Marina Towers building and do some, remediation studies there too and
That was
figure it
part
out.
of the other CIF. grant
Yeah,
that
the
city got.
The 2 million for the waterfront included that and the extension
A
of,
lot of improvements to Brown Park.
and the Heritage Trail.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Brown Park is, they have in the master plan that the city did for, parks, the Parks Department, they're pretty much, we're gonna do like
Do everything.
pretty much everything that's
Yeah.
on that master plan designed for, Poverty Brown Park. So it's gonna be really good. So that's great. And then the Heritage Trail needed upgrades to it, and we're hoping also to start doing a little bit of the Easterly connection, which was the plan. So there's lots going on. And we're constantly talking about more grants to go after, and the state contacted me and where they want to put us on their list for EPA funds for the state to get money for Norwich State Hospital. So I told them about the planning grant. They said that's great because they want to start getting some assessment money, and it needs a lot of assessment there. So that's, you know, probably, I don't know, a lot of money just for the assessment, not even the cleanup. So we're busy, and as we're a 2-person office, so we're, you know, working on the zoning regs and everything else. So next month, we know we have 1 application so far and about 4 referrals
Three
from,
for NPU and 1 for the city.
yeah, for the police department that get referred last night, do you know? Okay, so for police department, and then for 3 from MPU, so that's it. We're busy.
Okay.
I
Anybody else
have-
got any questions?
I got one more question. Are we still being sued by anybody?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
What was
well,
that say?
without going, we're not gonna go into executive session, but I will say with the matter that was about the, POCD is still in the court system.
Okay.
I guess that's all, that will be the update.
Ongoing.
And if you want to have an update from our attorney, we could try to coordinate that, but he went last month and I don't think we've had an update since then, so, you know, yeah.
Okay, anybody else? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ella,
I'll second it.
second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:16.
9:16.